Hello, and welcome to another third grade episode of Math Matters. My name is Ms. Matthews, and today we are going to be learning about how to collect and organize data in pictographs. In today's lesson, join us as we explore how to collect data and organize our findings to help us answer questions that we have. One of the tools that we have to help us organize information is a pictograph. Today we will be learning how to make our own pictographs, as well as read and interpret the data that someone else has collected and put into a pictograph. As you follow along today, think about how you are able to sort and organize data, read and interpret data shown in a pictograph, and answer questions from the data displayed in a pictograph. We will have an opportunity for you to reflect on your learning at the end of this lesson. It will be important today that you focus on these Portrait of a Graduate skills during our lesson together. Pictographs are a helpful way to record and communicate your thinking with others, so be sure to have your writing tools ready to use. As we learn something new today, you may make a mistake or feel frustrated if you don't understand something the first time. Remember that we can learn a lot from our mistakes, and that it's important to keep on trying and not give up. That's what makes you a goal-directed and resilient learner. Here are some materials you will want to have ready: a pencil or something to write with, some paper, and if you want, counters like coins, paper clips, or crayons. I'll give you 30 seconds to go gather those materials. You may hear some words that are new to you today, so as we work together, listen for these words and try to make connections between these new words and what we are learning. The first word is data, the information that we collect. A pictograph is a graph that uses pictures to represent information collected. A row goes across from left to right. A column goes up and down. And the key tells us how to count the pictures in the pictograph. We've been spending a lot of time at home lately, and I wanted to share these two pictures with you. Take a moment to see what's going on in the picture and use your pencil to write down some of the things that you notice. Let's talk about what you noticed. If you have something written down that is the same as what I say, you can check it off your paper. Maybe you noticed there are two children sleeping. One is a boy and one is a girl. The girl is holding a stuffed dog. The boy is wearing a long sleeve shirt. The girl is wearing a short sleeve shirt. Did you write down something different? Share it now. Now take a moment to write down something you might be wondering as you look at this picture. Maybe you were wondering, are they really sleeping? Are they brother and sister? Is it nighttime or are they taking a nap? How long have they been asleep? Were you wondering something different? If you were, you can share it now. While we have been spending more time at home, maybe our sleeping habits have changed. We took a survey and asked the question, approximately how many hours of sleep do you get a night? To find out how many hours of sleep people were getting, we emailed 40 people the survey question. As the emails came in, we decided to write each response on a Post-it note. There were just a few at first, but then the rest came in pretty quickly. After a while, we had collected a good bit of data. We quickly realized that in order to make sense of the information we had collected, we needed to organize the data. There are many different ways to organize data. One way is to simply sort the data. Here you can see the sticky notes grouped and stacked together by the answer given. The total number of people giving each answer is written on the bottom. Another way to organize data could be to make a tally chart. Similar to the sticky notes, all of the same answers are put together. The tally marks are used to represent the total number of people giving each answer. Remember, when making tally marks, they are made in groups of 5, and the 5th tally mark is drawn diagonally across the group. Another way we could organize our data is to use pictures in a pictograph. A pictograph uses pictures or symbols to represent one or more objects. Let's zoom in on this one as we learn more about how to read and make sense of pictographs. Across the top of this graph, it says number of hours and number of people. What else do you notice about this pictograph? And what might you be wondering? Did you notice the pictures? Why do you think the graph shows pictures of people? That's right, we collected data about people, so the pictures match our subject. You may have noticed that some rows or lines going across from side to side have more people in them than others. Were you wondering why? You might have also noticed the words number of hours at the top of the column on the left. Maybe you wondered what numbers should be listed in the blank boxes below. Based on the data shown earlier, can you make a prediction about what numbers would match the pictures if we read the graph from left to right across each row? If you have your pencil and paper, you can take a moment to record your predictions on your paper. Let's zoom in and reveal some more details about our pictograph. The numbers 6 and 8 have been added to our graph. What do you notice? How does that change your thinking? Did you notice that the row labeled with 6 hours had 3 people in it, and the row labeled with 8 hours had 8 people? Take a moment to think about how the number of people that slept 6 hours compares to the number of people that slept 8 hours. Write down what you noticed. Here are 2 statements that you may have written about the number of people that sleep 6 and 8 hours. There are more people that slept for 8 hours than slept for 6 hours. Or, there are fewer people that slept for 6 hours than 8 hours. Was your idea similar to one of these statements? Or did you say something different? Go ahead and share it now. Let's zoom in again and add more of the data to our pictograph. What has changed? What are you noticing and wondering now? More people were added. And maybe you noticed the number of hours were missing. take a moment to record on your paper the amount of hours you predict belong in each blank. The final three numbers of hours are 5, 7, and 9. Is that what you predicted? Did anything surprise you? Maybe you noticed the half a person. What do you think that means? Well, in order to understand what half a person represents, you'll need to know what the whole person represents. The last missing piece of the pictograph is the key. The key at the bottom of the graph helps us make sense of the pictures in the graph by telling us the quantity or number of items each picture stands for. This key tells us that each person represents 2 people counted when the data was collected. This will help us find the total number of people for each of the numbers of hours slept. Let's return now to the original question that we set out to investigate. We wanted to know how many hours people typically slept each night. To answer that question, we collected data and organized it in this graph. To communicate to others what the data we collected and what our graph is about, it is helpful to put a title at the top of our graph. What title would you put at the top of our graph? Go ahead and take a moment to think about it and write it down on your paper. There are many different titles that we could choose for our graph. A good title tells others about the question that we were hoping to answer with the data that we collected. Here is one title that would work for us. Number of hours slept at night. Now we are ready to answer our question, how many hours did people sleep at night? Let's start at the top and count how many people slept for 5 hours. Don't forget, the key at the bottom tells us that we must count by 2s for each person that we see on our chart. So if a picture of a person is equal to 2 people, what would half of a picture of a person be? That's right, half of a picture represents 1 person. So how many people slept for 5 hours a night? Did you count 1? That's right. Now take some time to count the number of people who slept 6, 7, 8, and 9 hours. Record them on your paper so that you can remember your answers. We'll pause here to give you time to think about this. How did you do? Let's count together and see. Looking at 6 hours, we can count 2, 4, 6, or 3 times 2. There were 6 people that slept 6 hours. For 7 hours, we can count 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, and that half a person is 1 more, so 11. 5 times 2, then add 1 for the half person. There were 11 people that slept for 7 hours. For 8 hours, we can count 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. Or we can see that there are 8 people pictured times 2, because each person represents 2 people, and we know that there were 16 people that slept for 8 hours. Finally, for 9 hours, we can count 2, 4, 6, or 3 times 2. 6 people slept 9 hours a night. Now that we know how many hours each person slept that we surveyed, can you use that information to find out how many people responded to the email in total? We'll pause to give you time to think about that. How did you figure out how many people were part of our survey? I bet that you were thinking you had to combine or put together all of the data or all of the people that we were counting. If that's what you did, then you got the answer 40. There are many different ways to combine those numbers. Some people like to look for those friendly tens and add on from there. Some people may have just counted all of the people by 2. If you didn't get to 40, that's okay. Remember, mistakes help us learn. Be sure you wrote down or recorded all of the numbers, and you can keep on working at it at the end of today's lesson. Here's another pictograph. The title at the top reads, Favorite Pets. Then down the side it says, cat, dog, hamster. At the bottom, the key reads, each paw print stands for 2 votes. Take a moment to use this information to help you make sense of the data collected in this graph. Try to write down or tell someone in the room 2 true statements about the information in this graph about favorite pets. We'll pause here to give you time to think. Are you ready to share your thinking? First, let's count how many people voted for each pet as their favorite. Did you remember to use the key to help you count the votes for each pet? Hopefully you noticed that each paw print stands for 2 votes, so you counted by 2s again to help you read the graph. Here are the totals you should have gotten. Take a moment to check your work. Let's take a look at some statements that other students have written about this pictograph. Maybe you can help me decide if each one is a true statement that can be answered with the data collected in this graph. I'll read each statement, and you tell us if it's true, because it is something that can be answered by the data in the graph, or false, because it cannot be answered using the data in this graph. The first one reads, more people chose cats as their favorite pet than dogs. Is this true or false? That's right. There were 10 votes for cats and only 4 for dogs, so more people chose cats as their favorite pet. This statement is true. Number 2. Most people voted for birds as the best pet. True or false? You're right again. This statement is false. We do not have the data in this graph to tell us about birds. Also, our graph is about favorite pets, not the best pet. We have to be careful to pay attention to the title so we know what question this information can answer. Number 3, 2 more people voted for hamsters than dogs. True or false? That's right. This statement is true. If we compare the number of paw prints or votes for dogs and hamsters, we can see that the hamster has 1 more paw print, and that paw print stands for 2 more votes. Wow, you are really showing that you know about reading pictographs. Good job. In today's episode of Math Matters, we learned about the process of collecting data and how to use pictographs to display data. First, we selected a question to be answered, and then we collected and organized the data. How did you do today working towards our first learning goals? Reflect on your process by giving a thumbs up if you feel like you got it, a thumbs in the middle if you're still practicing, or a thumbs down if you need help from a teacher or someone at home. Our second learning goal was that we learned how to use a pictograph to show our data and to help us answer our question and interpret the data. How did you do today working towards this learning goal? Reflect on your progress by giving a thumbs up if you feel like you got it, a thumbs in the middle if you're still practicing, or a thumbs down if you need help from a teacher or someone at home. As you think about the learning goals for today, maybe there is something new you learned that you don't want to forget. Or maybe there is something that we talked about today that you still have some questions about. Take a minute to record your reflections on today's lesson and save them for the next time that you are able to check in with your teacher. Mathematicians are skilled communicators who are goal-directed and resilient. During our lesson today, you worked on writing to record and communicate your ideas through graphing. You also persevered or kept on trying as you learned new mathematical ideas, even if it was kind of hard. Thank you for joining me for another episode of 3rd Grade Math Matters. My name is Ms. Matthews, and I hope you'll join us again tomorrow as we continue to learn more about data and graphs. Have a mathematical day and keep on counting.